Hi, everyone. It's Andrew with the Alliance for Innovation Infrastructure. And this month is Energy Month, which means we've been sitting down with industry professionals to talk about the energy resource relevant to their work. Overall, we exist to address the expanding risks of our nation's aging infrastructure. And Energy Month is so important because it's all about amplifying not only the importance of our energy resources, but the nation's energy outlook. Today, I'm joined by the founder and chairman of AII, Brigham McCown, to discuss the stature and value of our nation's energy infrastructure. Brigham, to begin, I would love for you to offer our audience some insight about your career path, starting AII and your commitment to engaging new perspectives in bipartisan collaboration. Energy
Oh
Month,
my goodness.
only one example of how we seek to demonstrate our responsibility as an educational think tank, and I know that your dedication to the issues we talk about is the reason why we're here to begin with.
Well, Andrew, first of all, thank you very much. It's exciting for me to be able to join Energy Month, and hard to believe for a couple of people who were just concerned about infrastructure policy and where that issue and where that debate would lead us that long ago. But I'm absolutely thrilled that AII has become and continues to be the nation's only infrastructure think tank. Part of the inspiration for AII, honestly, rests with one of my former bosses, friend, mentor, Norman Mineta, former Secretary of Transportation. Secretary Mineta believed that there were no Democratic or Republican bridges or roads or highways. There were just American highways, roads, and bridges. And it's really that spirit of not making things political, which resonated with me through the years of working for and alongside of him. You know, we carefully constructed AII to be that nonpartisan think tank. That's why the board is carefully selected and represents all views, Democrats, Republicans, all coming together. We don't always agree, and that's a good thing because we're not an echo chamber either. We're really interested in issues, but we're not interested in being political because infrastructure is something that all of us need. And I think what we have found through this experiment so far is that there's far more upon which we all agree than there are things that we disagree on.
Absolutely.
But that's part of it. Pitch a big tent, invite everybody in, and let's roll our sleeves up and see what we can do for the American public and for policymakers.
So how about this? Let's talk about energy resources. What is your perspective on our nation's energy mix?
Yeah, so this is an interesting topic, right? And we have some folks that believe fossil fuel is here to stay forever, or the drill baby drill. We have folks on the other end that talk about how bad fossil fuels are for the environment. You know, Andrew, with a lot of things, I think the truth lies somewhere in between, right? And, you know, what I prefer to talk about is our energy mix and how that mix is going to evolve over time. I do think that right now we need an all the above approach to energy. That's what President Obama said in 2014. We do need renewables. So we do need the solar, the wind, the geothermal, the hydro. We need to start working on biofuels, but we also have to address the issues of intermittency and battery storage, storing energy, the ability to store that overnight, the ability to move energy to where we need. And that's where fossil fuels shine, especially natural gas. And so I'm a big fan of natural gas as a bridge fuel. We live in an oil and gas world, whether we like it or not. Everything that we're doing is brought to us. Every piece of plastic, the highway outside, the asphalt, the chemicals. So, you know, the truth is it's not one or the other. Right now, we need to be taking a comprehensive look and think thoughtfully on what today's energy mix is, understanding that in 1, 2, 5, 10 years, it's going to look differently. And renewables and lower carbon options are going to become increasingly more available.
I think especially, this moves into my next question, thinking about the greatest challenges. You know, what can we predict as we move forward with various forms of innovation and technology? We have a plethora of ideas, opinions, perspectives on so many things because the way social media works, the way the internet works, people are being fed so much information that even if it is concise, it's not giving you the whole story.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. And again, I started the last answer by saying the truth is always somewhere in between. You know, what is amazing is the era that we live in. for generations, things didn't really change that much. If you go back to, I have an antique typewriter in the house, and it pretty much looked the same for 60, 70 years, right? Early TVs looked the same for a very long time. I have something back here, which I hadn't planned on, but let me pull this out. I have some things that we used to use, right? Recognize this guy?
Classic iPod, Generation 1.
Yep. How about this guy?
BlackBerry.
Right. And I use this at the university where I teach too, to talk about innovation, to talk about tech transfer, technological innovation. We are in a period probably unknown, at least dating back hundreds of years, where the pace of innovation is coming at us faster and faster each year. The leap from one generation to the next is quicker than ever. That's a fascinating time period to live in. Now, we need to figure out how to leverage that technology. We need to figure out how to make it better. We have to improve upon it. And ultimately, when it comes to infrastructure, how can we assure that our infrastructure is safe, secure, so resilient, and affordable? How do we transmit things from point A to B? And whether that's a ship or a truck or a train or a pipeline or, solar power, wind, whatever it is, that's the key. And we have some challenges that we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and dive into to make all of this work.
From longevity to appearance to achieving net zero. There are so many components that people think about, and it becomes very convoluted if you think too hard about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. I think regardless of what our energy source is going to be for, let's just take energy infrastructure, we're going to need infrastructure. We have to be able to move electrons from point A to B. And our grid's a little tired. A lot of that grid investment occurred a very long time ago. The interstate highway system was championed by Dwight David Eisenhower because, as a military logistician, and I don't know if you've covered this yet or not, as an Army officer before World War II, he tried to take the Army on a long-range trip, and it didn't work out very well, coast to coast, because we didn't have the infrastructure that we need. And so we are reinvesting in infrastructure. The pace hasn't kept up with our needs. And so that's something that concerns me, and it's something I think about a lot.
One thing that I think about a lot, especially with the bridge collapse that happened recently due to the vehicle crashing into it, I think it makes you realize how, I don't want to use the word fragile, but how nothing is forever. Nothing can withstand, everything, right? I've been doing these on the street videos. I've been asking people, when you think about energy resources and power generation in America, there were so many people that didn't have anything to say. They said, I never think about it. And one of the greatest things about Energy Month is having people think about these things.
Energy infrastructure is just a part of infrastructure, right? There's lots of different kinds of infrastructure, but while we're talking about energy this month, and let's infrastructure as a whole, we only recognize it when it doesn't work, and then we're frustrated, right? Construction, bridge out, traffic. I had this happen last week, and I had a lovely half a day in Chicago that I hadn't planned, waiting on my next airplane, right? So this stuff happens all the time, and it's frustrating. But, one of the things I love that AII is doing with their teacher toolkits, with the outreach, the education component, which is so big to what we do, because there's a gap. There's a need for that. We don't teach infrastructure in school. We don't teach infrastructure, honestly, to people doing infrastructure. We go to the gas station, there's gas in the, at the fuel pump. We don't know where it comes from. You flip that light switch behind me back there and the lights come on. They're expected to, but we don't really think about or appreciate all that goes into making that electricity and bringing it to our homes, to our factories, to our offices. And when you flip that switch, it just works. So maybe we've taken it for granted. Maybe we need to give infrastructure a little more respect. Think about it a little bit more, because without infrastructure, we can't do anything. And without energy infrastructure, we'd freeze to death. We wouldn't have power to turn the lights on. We couldn't go from point A to B. We couldn't get our favorite Amazon packages or shipments. It's literally responsible for everything that we do in life.
Isn't that crazy?
I think it is, because now you could say, well, wait a minute, how about food? We need food. Yes, we need food. But you wouldn't get your food without energy. The farmers' tractors wouldn't work without energy. The shipments wouldn't work. The commodities exchange, the trading, the purchasing, the vehicle that brings it to your grocery store or to your door, right? None of this would work without energy. And so it is the universal currency that we all take for granted. And okay, well, maybe we've always had it. So maybe it's a little underappreciated, but it can't get to us without that infrastructure.
No, and I have two cool points actually thinking about what you're saying. Everyone thinks about the nicest new cars, but are they thinking about the nicest new roads? How about we envision this nation without bridges? What would that look like? What if we envisioned this country without roads? What if you envisioned it without public transportation? What would that look like? The one experience that I had when I realized how important infrastructure was when I worked in Kenya with my dad growing up. It's such an interesting place, Kenya. The village that we were working in, everybody there had a cell phone, but they were missing 100 years of infrastructure. And it was so fascinating. Yeah. It was like, what really matters,
We use infrastructure in different ways. Obviously, the freight markets, the commodities markets, the ability to get stuff to us, we all utilize. But if you're in a rural part of America, you need access to broadband. If you're in an urban corridor, well, maybe transit is more important to you. There are different aspects, but I think to your point, it touches everything we do. And there have been plenty of commentators and experts far smarter than I who have said for more than a century, a country's success is based on its infrastructure. We couldn't have helped our allies win World War II without infrastructure and the logistics that go into that infrastructure. We couldn't have supplied relief supplies to countries without that infrastructure. So, yeah, I guess that maybe makes me a little bit of a geek, but when I go there, I fly in and go, oh, LaGuardia is getting a new terminal. That makes me excited. When I see a new bridge going up, I get really excited. Maybe most people don't, but I think if we all got more excited and realize that, truthfully, for pennies a day, what we get out of infrastructure, including this interview, right, which is broadband infrastructure, is so fundamentally important. So for anybody listening, when you get off of here for the rest of your day, do me a big favor and just think about how your life would be different if you didn't have infrastructure, if the lights didn't work, if maybe you didn't have a car or a bus or an airplane, if you couldn't do broadband, if you couldn't use your phone to make a phone call. It impacts us all quite a bit, right?
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, the lack of a sense of urgency, unless something goes wrong.
Yeah. And, the bridge collapse, we've had a couple bridge collapses, accidents do occur. We try to regulate and lower the risk of accidents, injuries, and death, property damage, environmental damage. We try to take mitigation actions to make sure that if something does happen, it's not as significant as it otherwise would have been by using innovative safety techniques. But these things happen. That's why damage prevention is another thing that I'm locked on about. Most people are excited about when they see spray paint on the ground marking utilities. Boy, I am, because
me too.
I don't like it when electric lines get cut, when natural gas pipelines get cut underground. It's dangerous. And as AII has pointed out, results in just so much lost economic damage. I guess in lost money to the economy, or lost time, or things you aren't able to do. It's so important. Yet again, something we don't really think about often.
Going back to how profound infrastructure is in general, and of course, we're going to turn this back to Energy Month really fast, but the amount of people who are on their computers and their phones constantly living in this digital world, kind of obfuscating themselves from reality, it's a strange thing because so many things that are happening in the digital world are affecting the real world. And the more that we neglect what is around us until something goes wrong, how much time are we going to lose by our negligence? I mean, that in itself is one major question that we should be asking ourselves.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's very savvy. That's what I was trying to get to in my previous point. If somebody cuts a broadband cable or cuts electric to your house, or let's just assume nobody even gets hurt in any of this. You have that lost time that you can't get back, that lost productivity. And yeah, everything that we do in the digital age requires infrastructure. It is amazing now how you can pick up your phone and flip to an app and call anybody in the world, have a video call with anybody in the world. It brings us together. It makes us productive. It makes us happy. The backbone behind all of this, if you could peel back the curtain, you would see pipes, you would see wires, you would see, the pieces of infrastructure that make all this possible. So, in Brigham's world, I would want my country to have the best infrastructure possible because it really improves quality of life. And on a transportation side, it improves your mobility. It allows us to be able to move around, to do the things we want to do. It enables us.
How do you define quality of life when it comes to the amount of innovation that we've been seeing in this country? I mean, we have self-serving hotels, self-serving restaurants. Where do you think that we need to draw a line?
Yeah, well, I will say this, just like when people say you're wealthy, it doesn't actually necessarily have to mean money, right? You can be blessed in many different ways. Same thing with quality of life. I think that's a personal point of view for many of us. Maybe quality of life is, being able to see a family member who lives on the opposite side of the country via video. Maybe it's the ability to go back to the small town you're from and be able to work from there because you have access to broadband internet and you can, do work from anywhere. Perhaps it's not being stuck in a 2 to 3 hour commute each way from work. And I remember missing some of my boys' Little League games because I couldn't get out of Washington, D.C. It was just gridlocked at certain times of the day. And, I miss those. You can't get those games back. They're gone. The frustration of sitting in traffic or of not being able to get to your destination. So I think it's the ability to choose how you balance your life and what you want out of life. Infrastructure should enable you to meet those goals and should not thwart or stand in the way of those things that you really want to do. We lose not only time and the value of our time, but there is a huge cost to all of us when infrastructure doesn't work correctly, a monetary cost.
Yeah.
If we can't get things, it drives up the cost of everything we purchase, everything from our coffee to our food to safe, reliable, and affordable energy that can get to us. You don't want to have to go, well, do I pay the energy bill this month or do I buy groceries? And that happens in other countries. And so it is crucial that, this investment, which is both publicly invested, right, and private investment, because a lot of our infrastructure is government, but a lot of it's not government. And so, having proper policies in place that ensure that we can continue to build state-of-the-art infrastructure and maintain and update our existing infrastructure, it's just critical for all of us.
When it comes to the challenges of our nation's infrastructure, what would you like decision makers and policymakers to know? What kind of blind spots do you believe exist?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we argue about the process or we bicker over, who's going to do what instead of saying, all right, stop. we all know we need to build this bridge, and we all know that we need to build this road, or we all know that we need to permit energy infrastructure that can reduce our carbon footprint. I'm dealing with this right now in a project where people don't want to build something. It benefits us all. And sometimes I get this refrain of, well, I'm not using that, it doesn't help me. Okay, but it does. Because if we didn't have this, how are you going to get your crops to market? What if you couldn't get diesel for your tractor? Or what if the electric doesn't work? Well, maybe somebody in the next county over goes, I don't use, and pick your piece of infrastructure, so I don't want it, anywhere near me. It's what I call the NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard. And I think we all want the infrastructure, but we somehow feel personally burdened when it's anywhere near us. I've even heard people say, well, I've got the risk, but I have no reward. I think that's extremely short-sighted, and it's a piece where we should all come together, neighbor helping neighbor, friend helping friend, because it's all there for our mutual benefit. And so if we could cut the politics out of infrastructure and really help determine what we need to properly fund it, to properly maintain it, and to truly have a long-range policy and plan for infrastructure development, we would all reap the benefits of that.
I think that expanding everyone's horizon beyond their own sense of place in America is really important. Just knowing how different the East Coast is from the West, how different Montana is to Texas, and thinking about the different areas of the country that rely on different resources.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. And I think you've said it very succinctly and eloquently. And it's not anybody's fault. I don't fault people who maybe have a different viewpoint. It's that as a country, we've not done our job of making the case why infrastructure is so important. And again, that goes back to our core mission at AII.
Yes. Well, I really appreciate that we were able to talk. We only have 4 minutes left, just so that you know. Is there anything that you would like to touch on or expand on?
First of all, anybody who's watching this video, thank you. Our work is not possible without you, your support. Sometimes that support is just in watching our videos and spreading the word. Sometimes it's financial support. Sometimes it's just letting us know what you like or what you would like to see us do in the future. A lot of our research is all based around important topics, but a lot of those topics we actually get from you all, from our listening audience, from folks all around the country. So don't be bashful. We really do want to hear from you. And again, I think it's important to say that we're all on this journey together, and we can help each other make our lives better. It's that sense of community. And I grew up in the Midwest where people have that sense of community through different life experiences. I've gotten to live in most regions of the country. And I really do think that we're largely the same. And we have the same goals. We have the same things that are important to us. So let us know how we can help you. And I'd really appreciate it if you take a couple minutes, and you don't have to share my video, but share some of these videos from the month and help us spread the word.
Yes, it's so important to diversify your perspective, especially when it comes to our nation's infrastructure, let alone energy infrastructure in this country. To learn more, you can visit aii.org/energy month, and be sure to keep up with everything that we're doing.